Alrighty, so we're going to put together all that information about that undoing when we start with the order of operations and work backwards to solve the equation. We're going to throw some equations at it. We're going to kind of tweak some things too and show you what to do in a couple different situations. So I think it's going to be pretty cool. So first of all, let's solve this one by undoing, but I realize I made a typo on this. I don't want that to be a 5. Let's make it a +4. If you can make that change too, that would be sweet. So now, let's think about identifying the steps first, because what I'm looking at here is if I start with my x is being first multiplied by 2. Then that x, or from that value, I subtract 3. Then I'm multiplying by 6. Then I'm adding 4, and then I'm dividing by 4. So when I do my undoing, I got to go in the opposite order. So I got to multiply by 4. So let me start by multiplying both sides of that equation by 4. And then I get 6 times the quantity 2x minus 3 plus 4 equals 10 times 4 is 40. So that takes care of that one. Then I got to undo add 4, which is subtract 4. There we go, subtract 4 from both sides. And then we're going to get 36 on the right. Great. Let's undo multiply by 6, and we're going to do some dividing by 6. And I know that's where you might say, well, I want to do the distributive property. Go ahead if you want. It's okay. You don't have to do it my way. Just get it right. So we get 2x minus 3 equals 6. Let's undo subtract 3 by adding 3 to both sides. So we get 2x equals 9. Our final undoing is to divide by 2. And you're going to say, wait a minute, I got a fraction. It's okay. Fractions are your friends. We can leave that answer as 9 over 2. If you wanted to go and do 4.5, you could. But I'm perfectly content with you leaving it as 9 over 2. Fractions are perfectly acceptable at high school. So let's keep going a little bit. See what I told you about fractions? They're your friends. Don't worry. 3/7 my favorite fraction. So let's go and do some undoing. It looks like I'm taking x, multiplying it by 4, subtracting 1, multiplying by 3/7, subtracting 8, or adding 8. So let's start there and subtract 8 from both sides. I know you're saying, oh, Mo, 3 minus 8, -5. Negative numbers too. That's okay. Now, here's where the cool thing comes in. So if we want to undo multiplying by 3/7, remember a fraction is multiply the top, divide the bottom. So if we want to undo that, we got to multiply by the bottom and divide by the top. So what we're doing is going to be multiplying by 7 over 3. Have you ever heard of that word reciprocal? Yeah, that's a nice word to know. And what's nice about reciprocals is that they multiply to equal 1. 3/7 times 7/3 is 1. Those cancel out, right? Cool. So let's see, we get 4x minus 1. Remember, when we multiply these fractions on the side, you multiply the top number and divide the bottom. So I'm going to get -35 over 3. Oh, that looks ugly. That's okay, though. Let's keep going. Let's add 1 to both sides. All right, so now we got to think about our fraction work, huh? So remember that if I want to add a number to a fraction, I need a common denominator. So let's write 1 as 3 over 3 and get -32 over 3. So 4x equals -32 divided by 3. Whoa, and then we're going to divide by 4. So we're going to divide all that by 4. So remember, when you divide a fraction, you're really multiplying by the reciprocal. So if we want to go and multiply the bottoms and multiply the tops, we're going to get -32 over 12. And you want to reduce that? Let's see, it reduces to, is that -16 over 6 if we divide by 2? Or how about if we go -8 over 3? Yeah, and I know what you're saying. Oh my goodness, my fractions are so tough. I get you, fractions can be tricky, we just got to keep at them. So the big picture here is, do you see the undoing of the equation? If you're going to get bogged down by the fractions, use a calculator if you need to. Keep rolling a little bit. Now, we can't undo this one right away because there's 2 x's on the same side. So what we got to do instead is we're going to have to use some of our properties. So let's think about some of the properties that we know. We know our distributive property. So if we distribute that through, we're going to get 3x minus 15. We'll bring down the other stuff. We also know that we can combine like terms. You might remember like doing that, combining those two together, and then combining those two together, and getting a 7x minus 16 equals negative 12. And now we can do the undoing. So now we'll add 16 to both sides. There we go. We get 7x equals positive 4. Dividing by 7, we get a fraction. We're going to leave it as a fraction. 4 over 7 is cool. Speaking of fractions, let me show you a little trick here. This is something worth noting. You look at this and you go, oh my goodness, I got so many fractions here. Well, check this out. What if we do this? I have a denominator of 5 and 3. So the least common denominator is 15. So I'm going to multiply everything by 15. Check it out. I'm going to multiply 15 there. I'm going to multiply 15 there. I'm going to multiply that by 15. And now I'm going to reduce my equations. I'm going to simplify a little bit. Check it out. 5 goes into 15 3 times. 3 times 2 is 6. So that just simplifies nicely. Also, 3 goes into 15 5 times. That gives me a 5x. 7 times 15 is 105. Now, is this an equation we can solve by undoing? Not yet, because we're going to have to do some properties here. So we get 6x minus 24 plus 5x equals 105. Combining some like terms, we get 11x minus 24. Now we can do some undoing. Now we add 24 to both sides. Yay! So 11x equals 129. Divide by 11. Divide by 11. I don't know what the answer is. Yes, I do. It's 129 over 11. And we'll leave it just like that. So we did a lot of things here. We talked about how to cancel out denominators of many things here. We did work with fractions. We talked about doing properties. Holy cow, we need some practice on this. What do you think?